About 3 weeks ago, Town Hall 16 was added into the game and it brought with it two really cool features. The first one was with the defense merging and the second one was the hero equipment. And initially everyone loved these new features, but now that some time has passed, people have noticed a massive problem with the hero equipment and the new ores currency that goes with them. There is a massive issue with the gameplay loop, which also creates a bit of a pay to win problem, and today we're going to be going over this issue, what it means for the game, and some possible ways to fix it. So let's get right into it. So first of all, we need to understand exactly how the hero equipment changed the game, since that is essentially the root of the problem. In the past, heroes used to have special abilities that were tied directly to them, as I'm sure everybody is aware. But the new hero equipment separate the special ability from the hero and instead turn it into a separate thing that can be changed and customized for each hero. And for this, you need to upgrade the blacksmith, which is a new building in the game that was created to essentially be the hub for the hero equipment, and by upgrading it, you unlock new pieces. But it is also the place where you actually upgrade the equipment, aka where you upgrade these special abilities for your heroes. And it takes a new magical ores currency to upgrade the equipment, which in itself is a whole nother problem that I'll talk about a little later on in the video. But this basically means that now, when you upgrade your heroes, their special abilities don't get affected and you're essentially just upgrading their base stats, which is a massive problem. You see, the biggest benefit to upgrading your heroes used to be the fact that their special abilities also got stronger, which was in most cases the biggest thing that really mattered for them. But now when you upgrade your heroes, it just upgrades your normal stats, and it is honestly really disappointing to look at the upgrades for your heroes and seeing that some of these stats are now literally just in the single digits because Supercell nerfed them and really kind of transferred those to the abilities. And this essentially also just nerfs the heroes themselves because you get less out of upgrading them, but they still cost about the same amount of resources and about the same amount of time to upgrade. And honestly, the resources aren't really the problem, since with sneaky goblins, farming is just way too easy. Instead, it's really the time that is the problem. It's extremely hard to justify waiting days to upgrade your hero just so they can do 3 more damage. And in those days that you are waiting, you also aren't able to use your heroes at all, which overall makes your armies a lot weaker, especially with the Archer Queen and Grand Warden, since there's so many armies that heavily rely on them for a successful attack. And this is really one of the biggest problems that came with the hero equipment, since it just heavily nerfed the overall value of the heroes, and now people are questioning whether it is even worth upgrading them because it doesn't seem to be worth it as they barely get any stronger. Yet they hurt your progression and take you out of being able to compete in the clan wars, which are arguably one of the most fun parts about the game. But with this update, the clan wars are also even more important, and this brings me to what the biggest problem is with the update, and that is the fact that the main way to obtain the ores is by playing in the clan wars. There are some other ways to obtain them, but we will get to those a bit later on. You see, this is kind of where the whole gameplay loop really gets messed up. You need ores to be able to upgrade and enjoy the hero equipment, which means that you need to compete in the clan wars and most preferably actually win, since winning can get you over double the ores compared to if you ended up losing. But in order to win or even just compete, you need to have all of your heroes, as most clans will include you in war if you don't have all of your heroes available, since they are so important and can make or break an attack. And if you don't have all of them, you're essentially just a massive liability for the clan, and all of this creates a massive problem for the players. Like, you obviously do have the option to just not upgrade your heroes and instead just farm the ores in the clan wars, but what this does is that your equipment gets upgraded and that becomes a high level, but the heroes themselves stay the same and you aren't able to enjoy the equipment as much since your heroes are weaker. But the way to make your heroes stronger is obviously by upgrading them, but when you do this, you most likely won't be able to participate in clan wars, meaning you don't get the ores to upgrade the equipment. And like I mentioned earlier, hero upgrades are nerfed a ton since it doesn't affect their special abilities anymore, so that makes it even harder to justify spending millions of resources and days of time on upgrading them. But it is still very important to upgrade them since it adds up over time, but unfortunately this time can mean literal months of just pure upgrades, meaning months of you being out of war and not getting the necessary ores. And I'm sure people are gonna say to just use books, which obviously everyone should be using, but the fact is that unless you're spending some money, you just can't get books of heroes all that easily or fast enough for it to be enough for all 4 of your heroes if you're at least a town of 13. But even with 3 heroes, it is still kind of hard to just rely on the books for upgrades. So the best way currently to balance out upgrading the heroes and the abilities is to really just try and save up and take turns upgrading your heroes and participating in clan wars. But the problem is that this is honestly just really boring. And overall, this whole ordeal is essentially just the massive problem Clash of Clans is currently facing. And there have been many angry people that are now quitting just because of how ridiculous all of it is. And another smaller problem that has kind of stemmed from this is with rushed bases. And I explained those a lot more in this video, but essentially the biggest problem for rushed bases is that they rarely ever get put into wars, since the base obviously sucks and is an easy target for the enemies. And if they do get put in a war, it is typically in a clan just for rushed bases, meaning they lose almost every war, which will also make farming ores more ineffective for people who rush their bases. And the unfortunate thing about this is that it isn't really even anything they could control, since no one was really expecting there to be such a big change with the clan wars, as those have essentially just been untouched since the day they came out. But I know some people are going to say that, well, there are other ways to get ores, and they will be correct. And this kind of brings us to the whole pay to win problem. So, well, first of all, the one other way to get ores for free is through your star bonus. And the amount you get depends on the league, meaning that Supercell is trying to push players to rank up, which isn't really viable for players that don't play much or are just dropping trophies or staying in a lower league for a variety of reasons. And this makes up most of the casual players in the game, and casual players make up a majority of the players in the game. But putting that to the side, currently you're unable to get starry ores from your star bonus at any league, which is the most valuable ore and what is used to upgrade epic equipment. And even though epic equipment isn't out yet, this will still create a problem when it does end up coming out, unless obviously they end up adding it later on. So, we went over 2 ways to get the ores, which were the clan wars and star bonuses, and I obviously already explained the issues with both of them. But another bad thing is that they basically just limit the amount of ores you can farm in a day, since obviously you're limited in how many wars you can do and how many star bonuses you can get in a single day. And this makes the ores the first important resource to actually be limited by Supercell. And I know raid medals and league medals are also limited, but the thing about them is that they aren't required or essential for a player to still fully enjoy and experience the game, whereas the ores are, since you need them for your heroes, which are one of the most important pieces of the game. But anyways, this is what is raising a lot of questions about whether or not the game is going towards being more pay to win, because the only other way to get the ores would be by spending gems in the trader shop, with gems obviously being a premium currency that is otherwise hard to obtain for free. And the ores themselves are also quite expensive, especially the starry ores. It really feels like Supercell is trying to limit the progression for free-to-play players when it comes to the heroes, which in turn ends up slowing down progression in the game overall, since heroes are obviously extremely important pieces of the game. But while limiting progression this way, they are also trying to encourage players to play more in clan wars, and to also grind towards higher leagues so they can get more ores. And overall, I think it is just really confusing as to how Supercell wants all of this to play out. But many people do think that overall, Supercell just wants people to end up spending money on gems so that they buy the ores for the hero equipment. And this has caused quite a bit of outrage in the community. And as for how this is going to affect the game, well, right now there are people just quitting the game because they anticipate that it is going to go down the same path as Clash Royale, so they just want to get out early before they waste too much more time on the game. But what I hope and think will happen is that Supercell is going to soon realize that this is a massive problem, and they will hopefully make some changes to fix this. And there is quite a lot they can do to fix it, so let's talk about some of those possibilities. The first thing could be to just reduce the upgrade times and maybe even costs for the heroes by like 50 or maybe even 75%, because you are essentially getting that much less value out of upgrading them due to the nerfs they have gotten with their stats. This will essentially just mitigate the problem of it not being worth it, and will also let people participate in war a lot more often and not really have to miss out on their heroes for as long, which will overall make the experience a lot better for players and let them balance out upgrading the heroes and the equipment a lot better. Another sort of fix they could do could be to make the books of heroes cheaper as well, since it is currently 500 gems, which used to be reasonable, but obviously like I mentioned, upgrading heroes is now less valuable, so the books for them also should lose their value a bit to make up for it, because then most players will be able to justify just relying on books for the hero upgrades. Another possible update could be to make the ores purchasable some other way, such as with raid medals, or perhaps even get new collectives for them so they can be farmed passively, though I'm not really sure if that is too viable, as that makes it a little too simple. But what I think Supercell could do is incorporate the builder base into farming the ores as well, so that maybe you get ores from each attack or from the star bonus that exists in the builder base. This will make getting ores easier, and it will also promote players to play the builder base more, since right now it seems like a lot of people stop bothering with it after they get the 6th builder, and will really only play if they literally have nothing else to do in the game. This is what I think would be the best method, as it overall improves the game in other ways as well, but it is also possible that Supercell could just completely revamp the system to make it better and fix the problem with the gameplay loop. I have no idea what this may look like, but I'm sure it could incorporate some of the other things I mentioned earlier. Either way, I'm hoping that they at least do something in the near future, especially before the epic equipment comes out, since that is when this problem is really going to start becoming a massive problem. But that's it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about the whole situation down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.